Well, my name is Ravi Kiran. I have a company called Racha, started in 2011. And Racha is a social enterprise. As an entrepreneur, I can't own a Khadi institute, so I have to only partner with a Khadi institute. Yeah, it's a cooperative society. Now we have around 6 weavers, women weavers, and around 20 spinners working. I would talk about Khadi as a craft and how Khadi can support other different crafts around it. So one of the questions which I'm normally asked is what is the relevance of Khadi anymore? There was a time when Khadi was woven for a purpose, but now that we have freedom, why do you even want to do it? Especially when weavers are not paid well, spinners are not paid well. It's a drudgery, so why do you want to do it? So there is always a reason why we need to continue this craft. Yeah? So where does this all start? Where does this whole craft of Khadi weaving starts? Khadi is basically hand spun and hand woven. So when I say hand spun, I will tell you what hand spun means. So where does it start? It starts here. It's cotton, right? So cotton is basically a flower. So this, what you see is Jaidara, which is indigenous to Karnataka. Yeah? And unfortunately, only 5% of the cotton which is grown in Karnataka is Jaidara, the rest of everything is BT cotton. To an extent, even to make our national flag, nowadays, we don't get Jaidara cotton. So for our national flag, we still use BT cotton, which is American seed bred cotton. Yeah, we have come to that stage. So what happens after the cotton is grown is it's bundled and it is shipped. This cotton has to be ginned and slivered. So this is a ginning machine where you remove the seeds from the cotton. And there's a lot of process after this, which is carding and combing and all that. So once that is done, this is how the rowing cotton is done. So this is the cotton which is red, and this is how your rowing cotton comes. This is how we spin. This is how the spinning is done. This is actually 6 spindles. We are using 6 rowing cotton, and she is actually spinning the yarn now. And this is not a machine. It is a mechanical tool. You still need 2 hands, and you still have to do run a tool. This is the spun yarn. So this is what we call as hank, or in Kannada we call it as a ladi. Then the yarn is dyed. His name is Amarappa. So he's a 2nd generation dyer. Now this is a chemical dye. This is not natural dye. Yeah. So most of the time he actually decides on how the dyeing is to be done. So now this here is space dyed, or it is tie dyed. You tie the yarn and then you dip it and dye it. So there's reasons why we do that. Because we are using chemical dye, we want to reduce the amount of chemical dye which goes on the yarn. So by doing the tying dye, we are reducing the number of amount of dyes which is required to dye the yarn. Yeah. So once this, it's a bucket dyeing, so we use a plastic bucket and we, you mix the color and we put the yarn and all that. So whatever is residue, we keep using it. We dilute it and we use it. So every 20 kilos, every 30 kilos, there's a different shades of blue which is going to come. So what happens with that is every time we get a dyed yarn, it's always a different kind of a blue. And this is one of the reasons we will never be able to scale up or export into thousands of pieces, because the dye is always different color. So we dilute it every single time, and the last residue, a little bit of like a mug or a 200 ml, we just throw it. So we take care of the dye as much as possible. Yeah. So this is a dyed yarn. So if it is not dyed, it needs to be starched. So even if it is dyed, it needs to be starched. So this is the starching process where we use jowar powder, jodar hittu. So that is what it's used. Yeah, with a little bit of oil, because it becomes easy to detangle the yarn. So this is how we do the starching. Once it is starched, it is weighed. So weighing is one of the most important process. You saw Amarappa being, we give everything by kilo-wise, we get everything kilo-wise. So the whole process of actually Khadi weaving is everything is kilo-wise. Yeah, even we weigh the fabric depending on whether it is 33 counts or 56 counts or 100, all those. So finally, this is what normally you see in images, the charaka, which we all think that it is actually hand spun, but she is actually just doing the reeling. Once the yarn comes, so she is just actually reeling it. She is putting it on the bade here, and she is reeling it into small bobbins. We have two different kinds of a bobbin. One is, this is a kind of a bobbin which we use it on the weft, that is from left to right. The yarn which goes from left to right is called weft. So this is what it's used. This is another kind of a bobbin which is used for warping. Warping is the thread which comes from length to, top to bottom. Yeah, so this is the warping. So this is the bobbin, the weft bobbin, this is the lala, and this is the weft bobbin which is going. So this is, unfortunately, we still have that wood. So this is the warping, thing. So you have this wooden structure, and you have the warp bobbins there, and you draw the thread to wind your drum. Yeah, I will show you the winding drum also. Now this is the place where most of the textile design is done. And normally this is done by a weaver or a master weaver, without using any kind of a Corel Draw, without using any kind of a graph, without using any technology. So they do this kind of a system where they draw the yarn from here. So this is Kotreshi. He is from Shirhatti. So he does the warping for us. Once again, when it comes to designing of the textile, I normally don't get into it. When we sit with the weavers, we always tell, we have 6 women weavers. So we tell them 2 of them have to do plain and 2 of them have to do stripes, and the other 2 have to do the checks. So, and we tell them, like, you do exactly, you don't do exactly what you had done last time, just do something else. So the design is something which they decide upon. So I don't get into textile designing also. Yeah. So I had gone to meet a women's self-help group where they were doing durries. Something like Jamkana. So when I went and saw, as usual, it was a lot of colors and too many things happening. So I said, can you just make off-whites, because I can either sell off-whites or I can just print on it and do whatever I want. So she said, I have to ask my husband. I will ask my husband and then I'll get back to you. That is the day I realized that women's empowerment cannot happen only by giving money. Yeah? If you don't allow them to think, decide and be responsible for what they do, you are not empowering them. You have to allow them to design. You have to teach them how to go about it. Anyway, so this is the warp drum. So this is 100 meters of warp drum which we have, we have gone around doing. And this is called reed, which is tattu. In Kannada, which is called tattu. So this is reed which we use. Now, fortunately, in our institute, we have bamboo reed. This is actually made in bamboo. Yeah, so it's, I believe in Northeast, people use this kind of a reed. I have not seen it anywhere here in Karnataka, if I'm not wrong. So we use bamboo reed. Now, this bamboo reed is very, very essential in Khadi. If you want a very good Khadi fabric, texturally enhanced to textile, then you need this. We have, most of the places they use metal reed. So the same thing with metal wires is what you get. Now the beauty of this is not only it is handmade, you can see that it's handmade. So when you actually draw the thread from this reed, Khadi has a lot of slubs. Yeah. So when the slub is passing through, the bamboo actually opens and the slub can pass through very easily. So when you're actually weaving the fabric, you have a very slubby effect, which is actually beautiful in Khadi fabric, right? So if you don't have this, and if you use a metal reed, the slubs gets cut. It becomes smoother. And not only that, after a point of time, the metal becomes a little hot and the cotton threads keeps cutting. Yeah, so that is a problem. We use this so that the slubbiness of the fabric is intact. Yeah. So this is Basarna Vadvi. She's one of our weaver, like a star weaver, always happy. So she works as, she runs a Kanavadi. Kanavadi is like a home run restaurant businesses, which a lot of people in North Karnataka do. So she, like, the entire day she is making rotis and doing Kanavadi. So only in the afternoon she comes. So one of the reasons why, one of the ways we work with these women especially is there's no timings for any of them. And it was very well thought for from our side to say that this has to be a second income for them. This is not a first income. They will be going and working in a season. I mean, now it's a season, so they'll be going and working in a farmland. So almost if you go to Shirhatti, there's only 1 or 2 weavers will be working. The rest of them will be working in a farm, which is an ideal thing to do. Yeah, we don't want to upset the social economic structure of a village. We tell them, okay, come as a second income, come even if it's for 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, just come and work as much as possible. Yeah, so she is one of them. So we make all kinds of things. It's not only textile, we make dyers, we make saris, dupatta, stoles, all kinds of things. So this is one of the things which she is doing. This is actually dupatta. You can see it's a space dyed yarn, both on the warp and the weft, and they decide upon the checks, and you will always see the checks is of not the same size. You know, so there's a rectangle there, there's a bigger checks there, there's a smaller checks here. So this will never get approved in, say, for example, Fab India or Shoppers Stop, or, you know, if I want to go and sell, they'll say, oh, what is this? I mean, it doesn't fit in. There's a quality, there's some wrong, there's a slub there, there's a small damage here. So, but we are very proud of it. We are very proud that they're actually doing this. There is unevenness, and then there is slub, and then there is, you know, beauty marks there on that. So we sell all that. I mean, we say that this is what it is. Yeah. So, well, this is a sari. This is a sari which is being done. So the most simplest design, the most simplest fabric is what we do. Okay, now these are the happy women who do the spinning and weaving. Notice everybody is wearing synthetic. Nobody is wearing khadi. So in spite of me telling them, you know, just keep one sari for yourself, and, you know, when you're making, just keep one for yourself. Just, oh. But on a serious note, what we have done to them is we have taken the pride out of them. Like somebody in Bangalore, somebody in Bombay, somebody in Delhi wearing these synthetic saris are made to look like synthetic. Even if it's a pure chiffon, they won't know what it is. And of course, we have enough movies to show all this kind of a synthetic saree. So they aspire for something like that. Unfortunately, the basic thing is an aspirational value, what we have unfortunately created. And they are very curious of who's buying, what did they say, can you show me the photographs of the sari which we have woven, and if somebody is wearing. So we do have a lot of our customers, you know, I tell them that if you are wearing our sari, please send the photo so that, you know, we can show it to them who is making saris. Well, these are the textiles which is done, different kinds of stripes. You can see there's shades of blue. Here we have used all waste yarns on the warp, so the stripes are all very different. There's no pattern to it. All the waste yarns are being used. In fact, when I travel, I collect waste yarns from other societies, because also because I want everything to be made cheaply. So I go and buy half the rate for all the waste yarns which is available. So we bring it to Shirahatti and we use all the waste yarns either on the warp or the weft, which people have been using. You know, they've just been wasting. So that is one of the initiative. So as Racha is like a 0% wastage company, where right from the color to the yarn to the fabric, we don't waste at all. We use in different forms. Yeah, these are the textile. Now here's Gopala, who's one of our tailor. So notice that we use locally assembled sewing machine, pedal machine. We don't use Zuki machine. It is not electricity operated. This is a regular pedal machine. So except the ginning and sleeving, what you see around 5% of electricity which is used, beyond which there is no energy which is involved, yeah, in making the khadi fabric. You also notice that the number of people who are involved in actually making this khadi fabric, like whether it is a farmer or whether it is a spinner and the dyer and the person who actually weighs and the weaver and all that, even the person who actually does the kotereshi, who does the warping, there's around 8 families you require to make 1 single meter of fabric. There are so many people involved in this. Yeah, there was a community of people who used to do starching. There was a community of people who used to do warping. All that has gone. I mean, those communities are not there at all. So, I mean, to an extent, I mean, that's because one of the reasons is we are not paying them well. They have been migrating to bigger cities. Believe me, we will not be able to weave even 1 single meter. I've tried. So it's very difficult to weave. I mean, if it's very difficult to weave, it's very difficult to spin. The kind of a knowledge which they have is humongous. You know, it need not be competitive. So the pride which have been taken for the long time, it's very difficult to, you know, reintroduce that for a younger lot. This is one of our simple garment which we have done. So this is space dyed, so both on warp and weft, the most simple garment. So this is our label which says Namma Khadi in Kannada. So what we do is we actually block print our label. It's also only because as garment we do the I mean, it's not branding, it's labeling, because the size is one of the issues, because garment has sizes like small, medium, large, and also because if they want to get back to us saying that, oh, where did I buy, I didn't know, kind of a thing. But apart from the garment, none of our products has labeling. We don't use label for anything. I mean, we don't say Racha on anything. Yeah. So this is one of the labeling which we do. We bring in a lot of block printing. So this is another part of craft. So we call this as an unknown block maker. So we have been collecting for a long time. So we use all these damaged and old wooden blocks. Some of them are as old as 80 years, 90 years and all that. So we have been using it. Now, because the khadi is an extremely simple textile by default, it can take a craft like block printing. If it is a textile like a khadi, which is very simple, it can support other craft like tie and dye, block printing, or embroidery, different kinds of things. Yeah. So that is one of the reasons why the textile has to be simple, because it can support other crafts. So we do a lot of block printing. Even in block printing, we don't use something called pigment, which is once again harsh chemical. We use something called reactive dye. So reactive dye is basically used for is an azo-free chemical dye used for dyeing the yarn. But we mix that with an edible gum, the gum which we actually use for bubble gums and all that. So that we mix that gum and we do the printing. So once the printing is done, it is steamed and it's washed. So the process is very lengthy. So even when we are printing, you can see that at the back, we use one khadi fabric and we start printing, and we'll retain the bottom fabric as much as possible. So this one layer of fabric will get around 10 to 15 colors and different kinds of a block, and it almost becomes like a resin. So which means that while block printing, we are not wasting the dyes which seeps through. We are actually retaining it in our own khadi fabric. Once that is done, when it is very thick, we actually use this as to make tote bags. We make it as a cushion cover. We make it all kinds of things. So it is different colors. So there's hardly any wastage, even when it comes to dyeing or while using block printing. We do a lot of kasuti embroidery. Of late, we have been doing a lot of kasuti embroidery, which is traditional Karnataka hand embroidery. So we have been working with a small cluster in Aminbavi, where there's a lot of Muslim families who we have been encouraging for them to do embroidery. The significance of is when it comes to craft, we always want to break the barrier of religion there. It's a Farida, the girl, who's actually doing this Shivlinga and the Racha and all that. Yeah, that is why it is very important. It is very important to get this work done. It is not merely about aesthetic value of it. It is what you do while doing this embroidery. And of course, all these things are sold on our website. This is one of the waste fabrics. See, we collect waste fabric from all over the Khadi Institute. I have tied up with a lot of institute where you have around half a meter, 1 meter of fabric which is left, and they don't know what to do, and they pile up for a long time. So we get all those fabrics. We wash it thoroughly, we stitch everything together, and we do something which looks like a quilt, which can also be called as Khadi, but it's quilted heavily. So there's like one side printed and another side checkered fabric. For us, because we sell on a website, we had a huge challenge in how do you actually courier this. So we came up with this material which is very close to jute. I'm not sure of it. I think it is jute, which is, and it has a plastic cover coating inside. But what we normally tell people is please reuse them. So this is one of the customer who uses like this. She has put a pot inside that, and she's been using. So as much as possible, we are trying to recycle. So this is where we close. I mean, we started with a flower and ending with a plant. This is the whole process of it, the importance of craft, things like that. If anybody has any kind of a question, I'll be very happy to address. I also have some samples to show you of the different kinds of fabric, the thickness and the thinness of the fabric, which is made in Karnataka. Any kind of a question, please feel free to ask. Yeah? Yes, upscaling Khadi is. See, what happens is, the kind of issues which we have in while it is dyeing or printing, weaving kind of processes. I'm saying a brand like mine need not scale up to an extent where it becomes humongous. So the minute you scale, then you need that, employees, you need that kind of a storefront, then you need, your overhead becomes more and more. So we have made sure that this is the growth and we have plateaued. But Khadi need not be not scaled up. I prefer another 10-15 companies like mine who can actually partner with a lot of Khadi Institute and grow up to this level. So scalability, when I talk about Khadi scalability, is about me and my brand, not as a Khadi as a fabric. I always say that, employing women is very important. As long as you don't employ women, rural women, and pay them right. There's a lot of, see, when we started, for the first 6 months, in fact, I used to go there every weekend and stay in Shirahatti. And how do you even, it's a very powerful decision to take, like how much salary is enough to a weaver, and I hate to be in that situation. Yeah. So what I did was, I was there for a long time to understand what is their expenditure. What are their expenses on every day? Not only weaver, even if it's a farmer or any other community or anybody for that matter, in that village, what do they eat? What is their expenses? Where do they go? How do they entertain themselves? Those kind of a thing. Generally to have an idea of what it is. And you need to pay double that. That's my calculation. Whatever they are earning now, just double it. Yeah? And make sure that it doesn't come very easily to them. It has to be tied to the production or the, the quality and things like that. Yeah. Of course, that goes, the sense of pride has to be very important. See, when you pay a women weaver or a spinner, 99.9% she spends on a child's education or health, unlike men who have other revenues. Yeah? The higher the skill, it becomes very difficult to train new people. Khadi fabric, Khadi Institute are just apt because you can just pick up anybody from the road and then you make them sit on the loom and start weaving, because it is so simple that to an extent. It's not like highly skilled. If you're going to Banaras, if you want to have, a new weaver coming, it will take like an entire generation to even learn how to do the Banaras fabric, right? So this is very important. Simple textile is very important. If you go to small villages, and I've also been fortunate enough to travel all over India. So when you go to these rural villages, you see how the garmenting is made. The garment which you saw, most of the time my tailors will decide on, like, let's make a half sleeves for this, or change the neck, add the collar, make the length shorter, or if we have designed a top, then make it longer. So it's a permutation and combination of it. We have around 40 designs which we have created, which we have been running in the last 9 years. We have never changed it. We don't change our designs at all, because thankfully I don't fall into that fashion category, which I'm stressed to design every 3 months something. We don't do it at all. Yeah, so design is also a collaborative process between me and all my tailors. So the trick is, one is start small. Yeah. So in fact, when we started, we had around 5,000 rupees when we started. Yeah. Start very small and stay small. What happens with a lot of entrepreneurs is it's always about scalability. They never think about staying small and understanding where you are and what it is. Yes, finance is always a problem. Nobody is going to invest on me. Not that I've gone and asked anybody, but there's nobody going to invest on me, fund me, and even the bank will not fund me and all that. So I've never gone there. So I never raised any kind of a loan in my venture. But yes, see, there are pros and cons of it, because Khadi is used so little in the market. For a brand like mine, it becomes premium, right? I'm the only one who's doing, I don't know, maybe Khadi in Karnataka to an extent of what I am doing. So in a way, it is a premium. In a way, there is a plus point for what I'm doing. But I definitely want more and more people to be a part of it. But yeah, there are a lot of power loom fabric which is there. There are a lot of made to look like Khadi fabric is there, which is sold for a cheaper fabric. The struggle is always there. So here our overheads are very little. That's one of the reasons, I work half the time and my wife works. We don't have a retail store. We don't pay huge rental. So everything runs from my bedroom, believe me. It's all under my bed. So it runs from there. So this is how we work. This is how you cut down the cost, and this is what it is. And fortunately, I am also married to a person who understands this most of the time. So it works. So yeah, there is a challenge. There is a challenge of actually saying that, oh, why is your MRP? So the thing is, when you see an MRP, there's a difference between price, MRP, and value. There's a reason why we have different names, right? So what you need to see is the value of the product, not the MRP. Most of the looms have become power loom. Most of the setup or everything is becoming machine. The only way we can stop that is change ourselves, right? In the sense like how we live our life. So in the name of modernizing, it becomes everything westernized. I do understand, you know. So the only way is not looking at rural. Like say a lot of people saying that, oh my God, I mean this looks so refined. So one of the challenges while I was designing textile, you know, I used to go on a graph sheet and write. You know, initially when I used to tell them, okay, this is how it used to be. Somehow the textile used to be very refined, because unfortunately I have that baggage of convent education. Right? So because of that, I have a very, and also the Facebook and the Pinterest and, you know, the amount of things which is there. So I have a very refined taste of how it needs to be for an urban setup. For me, it was very important to break that and say that, okay, I don't want to do it. Let people in villages decide themselves their aesthetics bit of it. Even in embroidery, in Amingada, we say that whatever you see around you, go a couple of days around the village and collect all the flowers which is growing around, and convert that into embroidery. Yeah, so which he did fabulously. So this is how you integrate, like how do they get, I mean, how do you make them realize how to get inspired? Yeah, so you have to tell them whatever is the surrounding, you get inspired by that, you know. So, well, I mean, this is how you integrate, like how to make sure that the product needs to be urban, utilitarian, but the craft need not be that. Thank you so much.